This lesson will review section 5.1. So on converting fractions, decimals, and percents. So number one, you have 0.35 or 35 hundredths. You want to convert that into a fraction. So 35 hundredths, you would write 35 over 100. Then make sure you simplify the fraction. So if I divide the numerator and denominator by 5, I get 7/20. Okay, now as a percent, remember percent means out of 100. So if I have 35 out of 100, that means 35%. That's one way you could approach it. The other method is to take 0.35 and move the decimal over 2 places to the right and add the percent symbol. And that would be the same thing as 35%. Okay, number two, you have 7/25, and you want to convert that into a decimal and then into a percent. So I would divide the numerator by the denominator. So divide 7 by 25. 25 doesn't go in a 7, so you add a decimal point, add a 0. 25 goes into 70 twice. 2 times 25 is 50. You have a remainder of 20. Add a 0, bring it down. 25 goes into 200 4 times. Actually, not 4 times. It goes into 100 4 times, so it'd be 8 times. So 8 times 25 is 200. So it means that 7/25 would be 0.28. You can add 0 as a placeholder. Now to convert 28 hundredths or 0.28 into a percent, you would move the decimal 2 places to the right and you get 28%. Okay, 60% for number 3, we want to convert that into a fraction. So 60%, remember percent means out of 100. So 60% would be 60 out of 100, which I can reduce by dividing the numerator and denominator by 10. And I get 6/10, and I can reduce further by dividing by 2. So I get 3/5. So 60% or 3/5. You can also convert that to a decimal by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So I'd be 0.60. You can add 0 as a placeholder on the left of your decimal point. Okay, number 4, which decimal is equivalent to the fraction 7/8? So what you want to do is divide the numerator by the denominator. So take 7 and divide it by 8. 8 doesn't go into 7, so add a decimal point, add a 0. 8 goes into 70 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. Remainder of 6. Add a 0. Bring it down. So 8 goes into 67 times. That's 56. Remainder of 4. Add another 0. Bring it down. 8 goes into 45 times. So you get 0.875, which is the same thing as 0.875. Okay, number 5. Brian bought a tech deck from Target for a fifth off of the original price. What percent was taken off of the original price of the tech deck? So you want to convert 1/5. You want to convert it to a percent. So take 1 divided by 5 first. So first convert it to a decimal, and then we'll convert the decimal to a percent. 5 goes into 10 twice, so you get 0.2. That would be the decimal, and then you move the decimal 2 places to the right, and that equals your percentage. Okay, so 20% was taken off of the tech deck. Okay, numbers 6 through 7, you have a chart with either a bar model, a fraction, a decimal, or a percent. So you want to make those different conversions. So in the bar model, look at what fraction or what portion is shaded in. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the total number of portions, which would be 10. So 6 out of 10, you want to make sure to reduce that. You can divide by 2, and you get 3/5. Okay, as a decimal, you can remember that 6/10 from the first lesson would be 0.6. Or you can go ahead and do long division and divide 6 by 10 to convert it to a decimal, and you get 0.6. Now to convert 0.6 into a percent, you would move the decimal 2 places to the right, and that would give us 60%. Okay, number 7, you have 5/9. So let's draw our bar model for 5/9. So sketch a rectangular bar model, and then break it into 9 parts. I would break it into thirds first, and then each third into thirds again. And then we want to shade in 5 out of those 9 parts. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now to convert 5/9 into a decimal, divide the numerator by the denominator. So I'm going to divide 5 by 9. 9 doesn't go into 5 evenly, so add a decimal point, add a 0. 9 goes into 5 5 times. You get 45. Remainder of 5. 9 goes into 50 again 5 times. Remainder of 5. And notice how the same thing's going to keep happening. So the 5 is going to keep repeating. So this is 0.5 repeating. Remember to put the repeating bar over the 5. You can add 0 as a placeholder prior to the decimal point. Now to convert 0.5 repeating into a percent, I would write out a couple of 5s and then move your decimal point 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So you're going to get 55. Remember that 0.5, the 5 just keeps going, so this is the same thing as 55.5 repeating percent. So don't forget those repeating bars. So in number 8, you have a grid with 100 units. We want to write the shaded part as a fraction and then a decimal and a percent. So count the number of squares that you have. So remember that each column has 10 squares. So there's 10 in each column, and then this column only has 8 squares shaded in. So 10 plus 10 plus 8 would be 28 out of 100. In simplest form, you can divide the numerator and denominator by 4, and you get 7/25. As a decimal, remember that there's 100 squares, so we're talking about hundredths. So as a decimal, you have 28 hundredths. So 28 hundredths would be 0.28. And as a percent, you have 28 out of 100 squares. Remember, percent means out of 100. So if you have 28 out of 100 squares, that means you would have 28%. And if you don't remember that, you can also move the decimal point 2 places to the right and convert the decimal to a percent in that manner. Okay, number 9, you have 10 in each of these columns that are shaded in. So you have 40 and then 5 more. So this would be 45 out of 100, which we can divide the numerator and denominator by 5. And you get 9/20. As a decimal, 45 hundredths would be 0.45. And then remember that percent means out of 100, so 45 out of 100 would be 45%. And again, if you don't remember that, you can always move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and you can get the same answer of 45%. Okay, number 10, it says what digit is in the hundredths place? So hundredths place would be 2 values after the decimal point. So that would be 7. Okay, number 11, it says name the place value of the underlined digit. So the underlined digit is 1. So the value that's right after the decimal point on the right-hand side would be the tenths place. Okay, number 12, it says write 1/3 as a percent. You need to show all of your work. So first you want to convert 1/3 into a decimal, so divide 1 by 3. Since 3 doesn't go into 1 evenly, you add a decimal point, add a 0. Now 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. A remainder of 1. Add a 0, bring it down. 3 goes into 10 3 times again. Add a 0, bring it down. 3 goes into 10 3 times. And notice how the 3 is just going to keep repeating. So 0.3 repeating. So 1/3 is 0.3 repeating. So it's going to keep going. To convert that into a percent, you want to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So you're going to get 33.3 repeating percent. So this concludes the review of section 5.1.